Yes, we've got 10 minutes, Vanilla, but we won't be pushing the boundaries very far.
Vanilla, there's a thing on the screen saying this meeting's been live streamed. How do we get rid of it? There's just a,
it's just a touch screen, I believe.
got it.
Is that right?
Oh, and the touch as you go.
Yes.
Nice to see you all in person.
Oh, beautiful.
Beautiful. Seeing lovely faces. And camouflage. Took me half an hour to get through the front door. Just kidding.
Yeah, during the meeting.
Bob did a great job as a standing in for a doorman.
Oh, should be a placement tonight.
I had such a great day today. I went home and went to sleep. Oh no, I'm not ready with that. Look, James,
Oh, you got it fixed.
it didn't cost me anything. Oh God, just as what he saw it. I got all of it.
You just put it back together.
Then you just put it back together.
Oh, awesome.
What about your car? What was it damaged?
I think you've got enough people to start now, Ross.
We have,
I'm going to go back on Friday.
Okay, back.
I'm going to go back on Friday.
members of public, absolutely delighted to see you all here. Maybe the last, I'll just put my thing down so I'm not sort of muffled. The last public meeting we've been had for a while, but it's great to see you here. Welcome, committee board members. Marilyn has put in apologies this afternoon, and we will get on with it. I welcome you all here. Who would like to move that we have a public forum? And
Don't have to do that anymore.
Sorry, yeah, Ross, can you get a mover and a seconder for the apologies first, please?
apologies from Marilyn Roberts.
Do that.
Move, James, seconded Dan. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And now we'll move to the public forum. Who would like to move the?
No, you don't need a mover and a seconder until the public forum, Ross.
Well, it's going to happen.
After years of doing it.
Yeah, after years of doing it, we don't have to apparently. I invite any members of the public to come and have their say. John,
And
on the chair there, put your down so we can hear what you have to say.
Am I talking to that or to you? It'll hear you.
It'll hear it. It'll hear you.
Yeah, who's next? Keith. Yeah, okay.
I'm saying. Men shed, that's what I'm here for. Key points. There's been some delays for material and the builder thought he was a close contact and had to stop. He's on the job tomorrow. We expect to finish within a month. The kitchen from here is going in. That's fantastic. Waihī Beach Community Development Charitable Trust now accepted in the industry and people have been happy to give us money. And now we've shown that we've got the shed up. Getting money is just a whole lot easier. And we've had several sources and particular thanks to council and committee board here for helping us. Thanks so much for the last donation. We need to spend about $22,000 to put a concrete apron across the front and a divider because we'd like to drink some coffee in the front and talk about our prostate levels and stuff like that. And then we'll have the work area behind it. So there's under 20.
no women allowed.
We're not devouring women from it at all. I think that we will have times when you guys are there and that's fine. Yeah, cool.
Just kidding.
No, I know you're pulling me, but some ladies are serious, so you have to answer these questions. Thank you. Big inquiry for jobs. Can we make a fruit stall? RSA have asked us if we could repair one of their valuable old guns, and we have actually got someone who can do that. And Wayne from Western Bay is just chasing us to get started so we can do all the work around the community. Community garden looks like it's going to come and snuggle up beside us. We've put a water pipe in for them, so they got some water for their garden. Talks with school about being the caretaker there, who knows? All right, so it's going well, and thank you for your support.
It's grand.
Yep.
Question, if I may.
Sure.
Yeah. Question. When we mentioned, let it be known to everybody in the area that they're open for membership.
Sure. So we've found that until you've got a thing on the wall which says that you've done your health and safety and you've got a fire kit there and I'm helping, whatever you need on the wall, you can't really do anything. So we would expect within, a month to 6 weeks we'll be there, and we will have a formal opening, invite everybody. It probably will take the shape of a coffee morning rather than night stuff and alcohol. We'll have to put coffee on for everybody, and that's probably where we come from. Yeah.
Thank you, Don.
Looks great.
Any other questions from anyone? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
Bruce, you want to be in and out?
Good evening, Ruth Parsons on behalf of the Broadlands Block Restoration Group. My report has been tabled,
Yeah.
but I will speak to it as well. We continue to make steady progress with our work. In December, we were donated near on 1,500 harakeke plants by Naturally Native. A working bee on the 27th of November saw several other volunteers turn up to help plant. Unfortunately, we only managed to get a fraction of the plants in. The remainder have been stored in the wet areas under the trees to be planted as time fits. An application was made to EEF, or the Environmental Enhancement Fund, and I'm pleased to be able to report it was successful. 25,000 will be made available in increments. This money will be deposited with Western Bay of Plenty District Council. To this effect, I yet again request an itemised statement of accounts paid and the remaining money for the Broadlands Block Rejuvenation Project held by the Community Board. And I also request that this be an itemised entry at each future board meeting. On the 27th of January, I had an on-site meeting with Steve White from Parks and Reserves. Following that, he was to go back and discuss issues raised with other staff members and report back to me. To date, I've had no further correspondence from him. Whether it may be because of an email issue, I'm not sure yet. The change of name for the block has progressed, with no submissions being received by council following publication of the proposal. Clarification on the spelling of the new name has been resolved, and we now wait for this to be passed through council. We wait for this announcement. Two other possible issues we have been made aware of is the approach from PowerPoint for easement over the Broadlands block and some drainage work to be done, but to date, nothing has been confirmed. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you.
Also, Mr. Chairman, Don Ryan, the comment about the accounts, I think, is important. Ruth has been asking for that since I've been on, which is nearly coming up 3 years. And if it hasn't come forward, I think it's disappointing. I'll be bringing up under the finances, there's a comment about the Broadlands Block Reserve, $15,000, which it actually is in twice with the same resolution. So it's disappointing that it hasn't been forthcoming to Ruth.
Yes, and
As most of, a lot of those entries will be internal entries that have come out of a whole collection of work that a group, is it Canon?
yeah,
Yeah. So that they are internal entries from a proportion of the work that he's done for Broadlands, but still no reason why they can't do those because they've made those entries. So we'll be pursuing that. But it has been a tricky one because it's been tied up with all the other kind of work that they've done. No, good point.
our balance in there is now 15,000 instead of 30. And that's attributed to the Jeff Cannon Benevolent Fund. No, I shouldn't. That's
Consultation fee.
Consultation.
yeah, consultation fee. And This here is absolutely marvelous. It keeps the cogs turning over and what have you. So it's important that that happens, and we have somebody who knows what's going on, even though she's based in Christchurch.
Can I just ask Bruce another question? In terms of going forward like this, would it be wise for us to be able to have an estimate of what the consultation fees might be? Because we've gone ahead and not even knowing what they were and not knowing what we could spend.
I understand, definitely.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Be nice to have, yeah.
Any other?
No,
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you very much.
okay, thank you. See you guys.
Who wants to be next in the seat? All right. Sorry.
Evening, board and staff. Basically, just a few things that I wish to mention today. First one is thanks very much for the cycle racks in Athenry. They are being used. So again, that's great. It's not a big number. I think the most I've seen, and there may be more, but I've seen is 4. But it's you know, hey, it's early days, and I think that's at least they were straight away being used too. So really excellent. Also to the roading, thanks so much for getting Athenry Road's intersection there with steel, etc. sealed. I hope it's a better job than the last one. I'm sure things are going a lot better. And again, so that's really great. From the homestead, I guess basically I'm just reporting that the homestead is still running, but it is likely that the homestead will close off at Sundays because of the COVID issues. It's just a matter of, at present, it's sort of been decided that it'll be at the end of this month. In other words, I'll keep going and have the
road show.
Yes, the Antique Roadshow, and then it's likely to stop, depending still on what else sort of happens. But they're just feeling that it's quite tight on staff now to operate it. And if we start losing some, leave alone, of course, the basically the responsibility to the community. So that's happening, and at present also it's starting to open up, thanks to the help that you've given to finish off various things in the homestead itself. The trust now is starting to open its ideas and its mind up to what else it can do that will be a greater generator of interest, of use, and of course of income. So it's feeling quite solid about being self-sufficient nowadays, although this current hiccup potentially won't have a major effect. So that's, but it's something that's there. Also, then, while I'm on about historic things, although it's not from here, the Western Bay Museum, just to say that it has employed a qualified curator. The lady has started and has been working really well. We are slowly equipping her with all her needs. It's something that we couldn't do till we knew what she wanted. She's actually been busy in the pack down of what was the current exhibition, so that we can get the new exhibition up and ready for when we do open again. Again, the museum is closed. That is largely because it's a little different to the homestead. It is a PCBU. We do employ, I have 3 staff that are full-time that answer to the trust, and me as the chair, and we have a couple of contractors. So we had to consider that as a health and safety issue for a starter. They have continued to work because they can work, and we have 2 offices in the museum, a lunchroom, plus we now also hire a office in the art centre. So we have those people able to distance. But it's the 70 volunteers that we have to consider. They're all older and potentially, could be a problem for them. And it was just something that it just got to a point where some things are just a little bit too difficult to manage as you're expected to do. So that's where it's at present. Community Patrol has finished its work around the beach with regard to Freedom Campers. 3 nights a week we were patrolling for the council staff to help as the contractor, or in place of the contractor who was struggling to have staff to do the job. So that finished on the first weekend of this month, and we basically found it quite a reasonable sort of a job. The guys actually enjoyed doing it. They spent time out earlier educating people. People just about 100% were just very good and appreciated the fact that they were given the opportunity to move into a loud park. We had 1 or 2 that were a problem. The other issue, though, which has come up and we're all aware of, is at Anzac Bay and people driving on the grass up the hill, etc. That we managed to catch a few people and have reported that into council as well. After 9 o'clock, we reported in those camper vans that were, or motorhomes that were in illegal or illegally parked, and anything that we could see at that point with that perhaps didn't comply. As I say, they were quite pleasant to deal with, the people. So the community patrol actually enjoyed doing the job. It was actually quite a pleasant job to do, and felt like they were achieving something for their community. Other than that, you've got other items in your agenda tonight. Basically, I think I should just leave it to you guys. That's what you'll be talking about. That's relatively me.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? No,
No.
you're allowed. Keith?
One more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fine.
The question that I'm putting to you is one that you probably don't know the answer to, but hopefully you'll be able to get a response from council. The question is, why are the developments going on at 8 to 10 and 54 Wilson Road are not being charged for roading in the financial contributions?
We will later bring this up in a meeting, Rachel. So just have a think about that.
I just, if I may,
Yeah.
I asked that same question and I received a detailed reply. I can't bring it up on the screen right at this moment, but
Okay,
there is a good reason. I can explain.
there will have to be a good reason.
Thank you.
Thank you. The name for this,
Yes.
for the minute.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Okay.
Connecticut Waihī Beach Residents and Ratepayers Association is concerned. Connecticut Waihī Beach Residents and Ratepayers Association is concerned at the number of resource consents being issued by Western Bay of Plenty District Council that don't comply with the district plan and have not been publicly advertised. Recent examples are 42 Park Road and 100 Main Road in Cadicat, and 15 Edinburgh Street, 27 Edinburgh Street, 8 to 10 Wilson Road, and 54 Wilson Road at the beach. All 4 of the Waihī Beach developments boundary 2 Mile Creek and have the potential to make the proposed works to stabilise the banks more difficult to carry out. They are all in the floodable zone, the coastal inundation zone, and underlain by moderate liquefaction sediments. The failure to publicly notify these resource consent applications means that the proposals are not being properly evaluated. For example, Western Bay Plenty District Council has issued a building consent for 54 Wilson Road that requires moving over 13,000 cubic metres of material. Bay of Plenty Regional Council requires a resource consent for any earth moving of more than 5,000 cubic meters. But this application was granted. This application was never referred to the regional council. Why not? Virtually the whole of this 5,900 square meter site will be covered by impermeable materials, but there will be no attenuation of stormwater. Why not? Western Bay of Plenty District Council's resource consent on the same property allows the developer to build a so-called bund wall to 3.4 meters RL beside 2 Mile Creek and the Tractor Broadlands block to keep floodwaters out of the car park and the undercroft garaging, which are at 2.3 meters RL. Now, I think that's about half a meter above normal stream level. The consent says a bund wall to be constructed around the rear of the property will have a maximum height of RL 3.4 meters. This will protect the site from lesser flooding events. Outlets from this parking area will be managed by a valve to ensure there is no backflow into the property. This wall will be at a higher level than Wilson Road where it passes the property, but not one of the reports referred to in the consent reports to deal with stormwater or flood. Sorry, I'll read that again. But not one of the reports referred to in the consent that report to deal with stormwater or flooding even mention this wall. One astute Western Bay staff member who had seen Wilson Road overtopped by floodwaters wanted the application peer reviewed, but that has not been done. This wall has the potential to increase the depth of flooding in the catchment of 2 Mile Creek, but not one of the applicant's consultants even mention it. This is just one of the many problems with this consent. That is why these applications should be publicly notified. And if you're thinking of purchasing one of these properties, you can be assured that you'll get early warning, because condition 22 is that subject to pre-design approval and prior to the occupation of any dwellings, the consent holder shall install and maintain an automatic water depth gauge on the bund and relay this data automatically to the residents. Thank you.
Any questions? Can we have a copy of that, please?
Yeah.
Instead of trying to remember.
Can I ask
Yes, sir.
what lot of questions here, Keith. What is your expectation in terms of response? Each one of them are.
This is just one of the problems with this development. There's traffic problems. There's the problem of parking at RL 2.2 meters, which is.
Is it within the site?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Underneath. 16 of the apartments have parking underneath.
Mhm.
Just like the ones at 8 to 10 Wilson Road have parking underneath at that sort of level.
Mhm.
Just so crazy to be allowing stuff like that. And it's been, the application's been approved. I don't know where we can go from now.
There's certainly a lot of soil being taken away from you.
Just
We had a lot today.
biggest belief.
Okay, we'll deal with that during the meeting. Thank you. Well, I know that will be, we are concerned that we are not being informed about the intensification development, the development intensification and the rules pertaining to it. Why are we going down this track of doing it? And it's a matter of clarification. Either we get the clarification or we just wonder what the hell's going on.
Yes,
Yes, Ian.
you obviously got all the details about this. If you've acquired it, I suppose, through the corner
I've got a property file.
property file.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, or do you have any question about the management of stormwater?
Yes, I do, because this resource consent refers to 4 different reports on storm and floodwater, and they all have different conclusions. One says this is so close to the coast, best thing is to get rid of the stormwater immediately. Another one says that no, they're going to put in 4 25,000 litre tanks to catch the water from the roofs. But that's a tiny proportion of what would come off the roof in a 50-year storm. And another one says they're going to put stormwater tanks underneath the paving in the car park, which will be able to catch the water and release it later. But there isn't any, they say 1 metre below the car parks. Car parks are at 2.2 metres RL. So the tanks the top of the tanks will be at 1.2 metres RL. There's just no room. If they had tanks there, they would have to pump them out because they would be below stream level. I mean, I've looked at a few of these property files, and this is by far the worst one.
So four reports, 1 chosen.
No, they're all referred to in the consent.
Okay.
And one I haven't been able to access, but the other 3 all have different conclusions.
Right, thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Keith.
Next up.
Very,
Thank you.
very alluding. For the time.
Trish, welcome to the public forum.
Yeah, I've just got a question. In light of what the gentleman just discussed with you, it sort of seems to be quite relevant. When are we going to have the next community development plan organised? It's 12 years since Waihī Beach had one. And all these decisions are being made. And I appreciate, Barks Corner's done quite a few good decisions for us, but it would be nice if we actually had a voice. So I would like to know when the next community development plan is scheduled for Waihī Beach.
Can I just clarify, do you mean the town centre plan? Because we've just done a community plan.
No, I mean the community centre plan, the whole of the community. It's all very well to have just the
It's
town
all bound
centre.
up on the
District plan.
District plan, village plan.
That's started now. It's on its way.
So,
No, community, no,
our
consultation.
community development plan, yeah,
Whereas the
Address.
community plan, a town centre plan, district plan.
right.
I'm not sure which one you mean.
Okay, well, I mean the community development plan
Right.
that decides on how high the buildings are in
That's
here.
district plan.
District plan,
It's a
so
district
that's
plan.
started, the consulting now, and it
There
will
will
come
be
out.
a meeting in March sometime about policy where the whole program will be rolled out just so that everyone knows where they are. That's what I'm told.
Right, and so is that sort of on the cards, or is it?
It's
still-
engagement with community boards in March and April, and then later in the year. I think Rachel might be able
Yeah,
to clarify that
same.
better than I can. I don't know if you can.
She's a team leader for it.
Right.
You wish to clarify, Rachel?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and a good question. I think it would be fair to say, and just by way of introduction, my name's Rachel Davey. I'm the General Manager that looks after policy planning and regulatory services. But in a former life, I was involved in the development of the first generation of community plans, and I think the Waihī Beach one that you're referring to is a first generation community plan. They were prepared at a time when many of our communities didn't have community plans, and council took much more of a leadership role in working with community to prepare those plans, it would be fair to say that through the passage of time, council's approach to community plans, to refreshing those plans, or even to moving into what I call sort of second generation community plans is somewhat different. And by that I mean, whereas you could perhaps historically expect that, I don't know, every 5 years or every 10 years, there's an automatic refresh of those plans. Council now seeks communities to show a level of readiness to move to review their plans. And certainly we have heard from the community board a particular desire to look at the village or the town centre, particularly given things like the effects of climate change. And I think you've heard Mr. Hay talk about some of those things in reference to specific resource consent processes. So I guess I'm getting to the long-winded answer. So there is a proposed district plan review that you've heard councillors talk about this afternoon, and we are endeavouring to have to begin the process of talking to our communities right across the district, including Waihī Beach, in March, April, May. Of course, COVID dependent. And I expect that those conversations will be ongoing. So it won't just be one conversation around what Waihī Beach residents, what keeps you awake at night in terms of community plans or land use matters or intensification of buildings and climate change, things like that. It will be more a series of conversations, but at least the first endeavour will be likely March, April, May.
Okay, and so that means that the community has a big say in the development of the future of this community. Are you saying that it's going to be how it's going to be?
Oh, absolutely. So communities are who define what wellbeing looks like, and council's mandate is to deliver on wellbeing.
Okay, because it just seems that things are happening here that the community don't actually know about and don't actually have a voice in, and that concerns me.
Right, okay, we've heard, Anne, you've got a particular question. This is a public forum.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So we look forward to March then.
Anne, you've got a question?
And over these extraordinary times, the public consultation hasn't been delivered in the way that we have been able to do it in the past.
Yeah.
But and that, depending on what was coming forward, we may be in that position. But please come to us again if you feel that you're not being reached out to, because we have in other ways that people may not have been able to access. So ring one of us if you're feeling like you're not being reached out to.
No, it's not just a question of me, it's a question of the community as a whole.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of elderly people here.
Yes.
Who.
That's my point, that we will, but we can't, as it's shown over the library, we were not in the cycleway, we were not able to go out the way we wanted to. And so if people aren't being accessed, please let us know.
Right, okay.
If I could just raise here, and I was going to raise it at the main meeting, but it's relevant, that at our November meeting, we were advised by the Deputy General Manager that in the next couple of weeks, staff would provide all community boards with an outlined program of the district plan review process, including the expected timing, nature of the consultation and engagement. Now, that has not happened, and it's disappointing. We need to have communication from council through to community boards, through to the community, even if nothing is able to be done for whatever reason. We do need to keep communication going.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Could I just address this to Rachel to help explain perhaps one of Trish's question there, if I was making some assumptions, that perhaps you can understand the scepticism that exists in the community
about consultation over things like district plan when a plan is done, but then it seems to be ignored, as we've seen with building consents. So just, perhaps you can appreciate that there's certainly some skepticism about the value of consultation on district plans and why people want to really have a definite say and have it heard.
Thank you, Don.
Mr Chair, but would you like me to respond to that?
I think it might be appropriate to stop questions later on.
Yes, I do acknowledge the sentiments expressed. I think it's I guess perhaps to address the first question or concern that was raised around a commitment to providing a timeline for the district plan review. I think what staff and councillors have understood is that our resource management system is changing incredibly rapidly, and that makes the district plan review, the program for the district plan review, incredibly uncertain. Because we know that the Resource Management Act is going to be repealed by this government. And rather surprisingly to everyone, in particular to council staff, we had a new piece of legislation emerge at the end of last year, which has provided another incredible disruptor to our district plan program. My sense is that we are unlikely to be able to get to a point of notifying a new district plan because we will have new law before we get to that point. Nonetheless, we are embarking on at least a program for connecting with communities around district plan policy. Now, I should say that that's distinct from resource consent processes. And while I don't, in the public forum, wish to respond in detail to Mr Hayes' assertions, I think there probably is some merit, Mr Chair, in addressing those concerns in your meeting proper if the opportunity arises. But a resource consent process, so that the developments that you are seeing emerge in and around the village in particular, so both the Wilson Road developments and Edinburgh Street, have all gone through a very, very robust resource consent process just because they are non-complying, in a sense that they don't comply in all respects with everything in the district plan, does not mean they should be notified or should be declined. But they are quite distinct from a process of reviewing the district plan policies and objectives. So I'll leave it there, Mr Chair. And again, if the opportunity arises, can address it in a little bit more detail later.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, can I just say that that's all very well and good, but then when you find buildings get built in the village that don't comply with our original community development plan for the village, and nobody actually knows until they're built, then our faith in you is slightly wavered.
We'll leave it as that.
We'll leave it at that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Ross, if I may, I got the answer for Mr Hebbensall, if you would like me to answer it. Mr Hebbensall, so I did ask that question of council, and the response was, in November 2016, section 11 financial contributions of the council's operative district plan were updated under a public plan change process. And blah, blah, blah. Transportation financial contributions are not levied. And it says rule 11.5, calculation of financial contributions for dwellings and minor dwellings. Part 1, the rules included in 11.5 do not apply to dwellings in the commercial or industrial zones that are above ground floor. So it's basically a rule in the district plan.
I understand the wording of that, but the fallout from that means that we have increased parking and computer problems, and it's not, by just saying they don't contribute anything, doesn't take away the impact of them.
Yeah, no, this was 2016, before my
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know the rationale for it, so I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, James. Anyone else? It's been well passed. Mike, make it quick, please. We've been 3/4 an hour.
No more monitors to ticket the people who park.
Be quick.
Just Bob Duncan
Oh,
from
sorry.
Oh.
from the community centre.
Yes.
Just some updates, sorry. Shanine's away. She asked me to come in to give you a few updates. So first of all, on the wall over there, we have a defibrillator. We'd like to thank the Waihī Beach Women's Institute for the actual unit, and to the community board for the case it's in. We've got to sort that out because it's a public one. So any time the building is open, anybody can come in, and if they have to use it. Second one, the offices upstairs are actually being underused at the moment, possibly because one of the reasons for putting them in was the coordinator was supposed to use them, but evidently that's fallen through. We now have Wi-Fi in here, separate to the library. We have had to go for wireless Wi-Fi because it was going to cost us over $5,000 to get the to take the library's fibre out and put a new fibre line in. So we've done that. The other things that we're looking at now at the moment are the gents' toilets to be upgraded and ventilation in the main hall, so we don't have to replace the windows there. And also we're going to put an air conditioning unit in the bigger office upstairs, so we can use it all year round. And the hall and the car park have been used for COVID 2 or 3 times over the last month. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for the update.
And when will the upstairs have its air conditioning unit?
4th of March, I think it is.
4th of March.
Yeah.
Thank you.
March, yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'll really make it quick.
Yes, very quick.
My name's Mike Hickey. I live at the beach. First of all, I thought the rubbish introduction, the collection for the rubbish went very well, and a lot of people made favourable comments in my neighbourhood. Second one, are we any closer to getting a decision on when the position of the new library will be decided? Secondly, in regards to previous speakers, council seems to be consistently inconsistent in applying building regulations as per the district plan. For example, some apartment blocks have basements below water level, and Ruth Parsons had photographic evidence of that in Edinburgh Street in July, and other people have to comply with council insisting that the house floor level is raised above water. So no consistency there. Do we have a report or summary from the beach security contractors on their work this summer? It's intriguing to note they had a contract, but they didn't have enough staff to fulfill the contract. There was talk of some beach ambassadors too at one stage, a year or two back. And the other thing, street markings. We really do need street markings. There's 26 intersections that have not got rectangles or giveaway signs. There's no markings whatsoever. And parking is a problem when they park right to the end of the street, and you've got to get right out in the middle, and all the holiday makers are parked along the side. So yes, the the building thing, it seems to me, the observations I've seen is the main thing is that they don't break the 11th commandment. And if you don't know what the 11th commandment is, it is thou shalt not be found out. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got no one else? No. Thank you all for coming. It's a joy to hear our voices again and see who's saying what. So thank you very much. I'll close. Somebody move, I will move. The public session will be.
No, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't have
to. We'll move. Vanilla, we will move into the meeting proper.
Ross, it might be worthwhile if you pop into the seat that the public forum speakers were in, just for the sake of the microphone.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. All set for you in the destinations of Chairperson?
Lots better, thank you.
Right. Welcome, staff. Welcome, Ashley. You look quite impressive there. Rachel, welcome. And we'll get on with it. And Panella and Jacinda, no.
Janisha.
Janita is controlling everything.
Yeah, she's onto the Zoom.
Hi there.
Got any video in?
I do. I can put my video on. Yeah.
She doesn't usually pop it on, Ross. She's just there just in case there's technical difficulties.
No, but there may be somebody.
Doug is here.
Doug,
Oh, no, he's just gone.
He's just left. Yeah.
Yeah.
all right, okay, that's fine. Okay. Meeting proper. Now I have to make a confession, Panella. I meant to do the run sheet, but it never got done. So apologies. I will go through, hopefully in some sort of logical manner.
No worries.
But I will take my
Got to do the minutes first, Ross.
Oh yes, we've got to
Page
do them.
6.
Sorry. Minutes of the last meeting. Who would like to move them? And should we make any amendments to them?
I'm happy to move them, Mr. Chairman. There is one on page 14, the bills related to the maps have come through. So if they could be approved for payment, they total $1,387.80. We allow for $3,000. So
half the cost of a portion.
them, but
They're the cycleway.
yeah,
Cycleway maps that are on billboards now.
correct.
I'm sure that's part of the minutes though.
Yeah, I'm in the minutes.
We just second it and then we can move on to.
Yeah.
approving.
Yeah, we'll put it into business. Okay. And
Do you have a seconder for the minutes, Ross? I've got to move those.
James,
Okay.
all those in favour of those minutes of the last meeting, all those in favour and say that Chairman's record, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. So I'll leave you to prompt me, Penella. Next in the line of things.
That's your chairperson's report on page 34.
34. I'll take it as read, but I will want to highlight a few things. Ashley, we definitely do want to have a conversation about extending parking, particularly behind the porch.
Yep.
And then out somewhere else other than out to Wilson Road.
Yep, I can certainly come out and have a look. I know we've had that discussion. I can engage Westlink to do detailed design. I'd suggest there would be some fee expected for that design as well, because it'd be quite a significant process.
You were originally, at some stage, had a draft guesstimate of filling in the swamp. Can you remember any likelihood of what cost that would be?
Yeah, I do recall forwarding a bit of a guesstimate. I don't have that in front of me, sorry. I can look into it.
That would be helpful. And as James did a very good study of Christmas, New Year parkings and things.
I actually forwarded it to Ashley.
Yeah.
Just mainly at this point, just to check for any fatal flaws. I haven't heard back yet, but I think maybe we had discussion at some point about how we take this forward.
Yeah. Ian.
Hi, Ashley. We have had some discussions over the Christmas period about various alternatives for the parking here, and we even had some today. James and I had a wee look around 2 Mile Creek. But I'm just wondering whether it might be more than just you that does a walk around the area to look at the possibilities, and whether we get Gary out here to have a look as well and have a walk around. Just what your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's certainly a significant undertaking.
One of the thoughts is actually purchasing some more land.
We might need Blaze.
Blaze, maybe, yeah. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. Yep. I mean, obviously that is a significant undertaking, and I would need certainly to get Gary and Blaze's buy-in. Well, not for the discussion phases, but once we'd had a look at a few things, I'd certainly engage with both Gary and Blaze to see where to go to after the initial first steps.
So we go through that first and then get them on board afterwards.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm available for a walk over at any time.
Yeah. Just a comment on that is that we know this is a long-term project. I mean, 5 years or more, but we've got to start 2 years ago when we identified the problem. Nothing has come up, or we've not progressed other than rearranging the car park behind the porch. Really.
And Edinburgh Street.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any funding within the long-term plan for the Waihī Beach extension parking. So,
no, but we do have an annual plan submission to come up.
Yep, no, I was aware of that also. Yep. But look, I'm happy to do a workshop style walkover, present to Gary and Blaze, and seek their advice after that, essentially.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rachel. And to Rachel, now that intensification projects don't have to have off-street parking, or even when they don't have to provide for it, and don't get any roading financial contributions, where do we get the money from to do extra parking?
Well, I guess what I can say, Mr. Chairman, is from sources other than through financial contributions. So so it's through your long-term plan process.
So they create the impact, but don't pay for it.
So, Ross, I suspect that you're already aware from the comment that you made just a moment ago that the requirement for parking has been, the requirement for parking needs to be removed from our district plan as a result of the National Policy Statement for Urban Development. So that's why it has to be removed, because we are a Tier 1 growth council. So that's why the requirement for parking has to be removed. That doesn't preclude, however, developments from including parking. And more often than not, we will still see developments across our district include parking, because we don't have the intensification or the PT options or the mode shift alternatives for people. So we will still continue to see developments that provide parking. But to the question you raise around, if we're not collecting a FinCo, how else can we see parking develop at the beach? To me, that is a conversation that needs to be, it's a levels of service conversation, and one that needs to be progressed through your long-term plan.
All right, thank you. That's a discussion we'll look
Level of
forward to.
service. Yes, thank you.
Right, okay, community plan. Oh,
Excuse me,
yeah.
Rob, just another point from your report there, the Chair's report on the Wilson Road replanting. There now appears to be an issue with the bike racks at the entry to the what we'll call the police station car park. They're effectively non-functioning. One, because the tail end of bikes, if you park your bike there, your back wheel's over the footpath. And two, because it doesn't stay there, because the ground has possibly raised up with tree roots or something or whatever, but it's lifted the bike rack, so you pop your bike in there, you let it go, it rolls out. So we're probably going to need those removed prior to doing the replanting. And Ashley, if we could look at maybe an alternative for the bike rack there, and just we'll have to look at whether we can actually recontour the ground a bit, or whether we can do something a bit further forward so there's room. I think it's something that we need to look at before we get into the planning.
Yeah, sure. I can look into alternatives. That's not a problem. I don't believe those cycle racks were ever council assets. I'm not sure where they've come from. You mean the ones out in front of the information sign?
Yes.
Yeah, look, yeah, we've got alternatives. We could fund that simple bollard style that we put over by the fish and chip shop. I think they look really good and suit that whole beach style. Or we could just do a simpler staple style. There's certainly alternatives that we can consider.
Actually, can you work with Bob to solve that issue so that the planting actually goes ahead and we don't get a hiccup?
Yep, I'm certainly happy to mark in as required. Yeah, I'm only ever an email away. I've kind of contacted Bob a few times just to discuss bits and pieces where I think that we need to progress.
And just further to what Bob said, there is a little bit of urgency for us that we would like to progress this before the end of this triennium. So that work would need to be done in conjunction with this season's planting. And are the bike racks, are we changing the bike racks? Is that what you're suggesting? And if so, do you have availability of them?
So if the board would like to request new bike facilities and would like to pass that and fund them through your roading account, I can certainly organise that.
Are we doing that?
Bob?
I think that's an extension to your original $30,000 allocated for the garden anyway. Well through.
That out of the bike racks out of our roading account.
It's another 6 weeks.
Oh, before we can.
Yeah.
Oh, perhaps wanted took it.
Well, it's not budgeted.
For the next meeting then. But if we do it now.
It comes out of, as Ashley has clearly put, that comes out of the 30 grand that we budgeted for doing the work.
What I'm suggesting is that there should be an alternative resolution for additional bike facilities, because I think you will burn through your $30,000 allocation very, very quickly. You've already made a few variations already. I think your $30,000 is going to get stretched pretty thin.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll move that in the meeting, that we do something about that, eh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll do it now.
Do now.
Do it now, don't let it lost.
Don't let it lost. All right, what do you want?
Well, if I can ask Ashley, what sort of amount, I know it's a bit tough off the top of your head, but we have done a few bike racks lately. Would it be to replace that bike rack with a style similar to the
across the road?
One across the road by the fish and chip shop, but bearing in mind that existing one looks like it's pretty well, permanently set in the ground there. It's going to take a bit of work to get it out.
Concrete.
We can get it out. I'll make short work of that. We've got staff that could pop that out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So what are we looking at, do you think?
Oh, hey, look, I could take a bit of a stab. I think you'd get change from, I mean, the thing is, it was the pine prices that pushed up the fish and chip shop once, and they've probably gone up again. I mean, that's just the sad fact of this age that we're living in. Oh, hey, look, if I would have liked to think that we could get them in and the old one removed for, I'm going to say $6,000.
If we then allow 10,000, we've got to cover.
You'd have change, yeah, absolutely. I'd like to hope so anyway.
The ones at Tuna Avenue are excellent, with a slab and
Yes.
and they're well used for school. There's quite a number there, I think 10 or so. Could we not make the resolution similar to Tuna Avenue? At a
Well, in the middle of a garden at the moment, and the garden kind of
It's no longer.
makes a toilet block not look so harsh.
We'll put them further down.
I think if we followed what's across the road, it will be all in keeping instead of having different sorts of bike racks all over the place.
Okay.
I would like to say that too. Those ones at Tuna Street are very practical. They're suitable for the school use. They're probably not quite as aesthetically pleasing as those pine ones that we've set in the fish and chip shop. If it was up to me, I'd like to stick with that same theme.
Yeah.
Or at the least.
Rob, you're proposing a allocation from our roading account for $10,000
Up to.
up to $10,000 for removal and replacement of bike racks by the community site.
I second that.
You seconded, Anne? We've had the discussion. Any other further comments? No, not B. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. We move on. Community plan. We worked on this today. We can send you the updated file, Penella.
Thank you.
Progress, and I might mention Marilyn has put a hell of a lot of work into this and tried to the last minute alterations today. She's worked on this. So congratulations to Marilyn. I wanted that recorded in the minutes. But who would like to? I will move that this community plan be added to our file about community plans.
And acknowledge Marilyn.
And acknowledge Marilyn's input into it.
I second that.
Thank you, Anne. Any further discussion?
Yeah, when you say add it to our plan, what do you mean?
Pardon?
When you say add it to our plans, what
We're
do you mean?
updating
Updating progress, I guess. Isn't
Yeah.
it? That's the progress report.
Did you want to table in the minutes or so you saw something else?
This is a part of a process that we assess where we've gone and where we're going to go yearly. And it always happens in our February meeting. And we have to do one before we exit this board triennium.
I'm just asking where it's going to go physically.
Physically,
Will it be
Or
held?
virtually, but
virtually, it'll be held in, and I hope David Pearce actually looks at it when he does a report on Waihī Beach again.
If I'm not, the community plan went to council. So do the progress reports on that community plan still follow that same process?
Should do.
I don't think they have so far.
Well, we'll make certain they do. Penella, they'll be forwarded to the appropriate staff people.
Perfect. I'll make sure of it. Yeah.
Thank you. David Pearce at the first instance.
Okay.
Now we've had,
Yeah.
it's been tabled.
I
Yeah,
second it.
you seconded. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. District plan, March meeting, policy. Rachel, you've got the plan already by now?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I didn't quite catch what you said.
District plan and how you're going to connect with the communities.
Yes, so as I said earlier in public forum, it is our intention to begin a process of engagement. And to be fair, we are starting with Te Puke, and there is a reason why we have to start with Te Puke, and that's as a result of new legislation which was progressed through Parliament very, very quickly at the end of last year. But we do anticipate that we will have opportunities to connect with community and community stakeholders, including the community board, throughout that 3-month period that I talked about, March, April, May. So I don't want to give expectations that we'll be there from the 1st of March, which is kind of in a fortnight or so, because our elected members haven't even seen yet our community engagement approach. And that's the next step, is to brief our elected members, get some feedback on how we're endeavouring to connect with community and key stakeholder groups, including community boards. And then we will be endeavouring to get out. Would be a mix of opportunities, so both face-to-face, probably focus groups, as well as a whole lot of online channels too. And that enables people who don't wish to come to a focus group or turn up on a Saturday morning or whatever it might be, to, in the comfort of their own lounge, have the same experience but through a digital mechanism.
Thank you, Rachel.
Can you just,
I was, just one moment, Anne. I was told by Philip Martelli there was to be a combined community board get together about this, how we all engage. Is that not happening?
Yes. No, that's still part of our package of engagement. But of course, we're in the now we're in a. I think when Philip came and spoke to Philip and Natalie, because it's Natalie that's actually leading the review of the district plan. But when they last came and spoke to you at your workshop, I'm not sure. I think we were just about to transition into a traffic light system. So again, it's just about determining how we can make that work in a way that keeps everybody safe.
But I understand that Te Puke and Omakaroa are getting 3 stories as of right. The rest of us don't need that, or don't get it, depending on your point of view. And so they'll get first blush on what the requirements, as you say, just before Christmas. 3 stories, intense development as of right. We're not going to get that, thank God. So sort of, how do you see the timeline on this?
you can't tell.
As I said, probably the March, April, May period. So I'm loath to give you a firm date right now, Ross. So the staff are furiously preparing our community engagement plan. It has to be planned well. And as soon as we do have a firm date, either for a combined community board workshop or for opportunities to connect more broadly than the community board, I will let you know, or your elected members will let you know.
Thank you. Anne?
Rachel, you just mentioned the legislation that affected the way you went about the delivery, or I can't think what I want, but the legislation that came in before Christmas. Can you just say that for our records, what it was, please?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. It's colloquially known as the Housing Supply Bill. It's now law, and it is broadly what which Chair Ross described a moment ago, which requires councils to progress something akin to a plan change to implement what are being called medium density residential standards in urban environments across their district. And for us, an urban environment, it's defined in the law, and an urban environment is Omakaroa and Te Puke, and it's defined by way of a population trigger. So that's why Waihī Beach is not going to be the recipient of the medium density residential standards. And very, very simply, what that means is, as a permitted activity on certain sites, you can develop 3 buildings of 3 stories as of right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, we're apparently doing that already in Waihī Beach. Throwaway comment.
Couldn't resist, sorry.
Couldn't resist. And we need to have a sit down with whoever, however, and get some clarification about the intensification in the particular places they're happening, because it's not clear, even as Keith Hay has said, what is happening and the lack of detail in their consents. But we'll leave that discussion not in our formal place. We need to have a discussion with whoever, yourself and others, about that.
Yes,
We
Mr. Chair, happy to do that.
We're not
But there is just one comment. There is one comment I wish to make, and that is that the points of view that Mr. Hay shared with you in the public forum have been asked directly of council staff by way of an Official Information Act request, and they have, I have via my office responded in detail to all of those issues raised by Mr. Hay. So I do wish to express that I find it a little bit disingenuous that there has been no disclosure of the fact that a reply has been offered by council staff giving a completely different view on Mr. Hay's stormwater analysis. And respectfully, I am not a stormwater engineer, nor am I a planner. And we engage all of those experts, and so too do applicants, to provide their professional opinion in support of applications, or when reviewing applications as the consent authority. So only too happy to have a further discussion around how notification works. And I'm sure that our 2 elected members that I'm looking at, both of whom are on the District Plan Committee, would no doubt share their views in that regard as well. But I do, if you think it might be useful, I'm only too happy to provide you with the response to the Official Information Act request that was proffered to Mr. Hay, which does provide answers to a number of the questions that he raised, or the concerns he raised this evening.
Thank you, Rachel. That would be most helpful. And no, he did not say he'd received that.
No.
And that is very naughty of him. But we would like, as a community board, to understand the points raised and our own points that we have raised about the intensity and the implications of sites of these developments. Okay?
We will ask him next time we see him.
Thank you. Move on. Live well. We've got a meeting tomorrow. Oh, sorry, Andy.
Oh, no. You are going to go through every one of these, are you?
You want to? No. Live well. We've got a meeting tomorrow. It's the developments in that particular sector. So we need to. Anne and I are on that committee. We'll keep you updated on that. Library side. When are we going to hear? You any idea? Anne?
Well, that was what my question was going to be about. Analysis of phase 1 engagement has been completed, but when will we be getting the written submissions that were sent in? When will we get a report of that? Huh? No, this is in it.
We go through.
Yeah, we're just going through.
We're going through item by
item.
item.
Yeah.
So that's my question.
It comes up later. Infrastructure report.
Yeah, but it's because there's quite a bit of detailed information that was actually sent in, and we haven't actually seen that level of detail yet. And my question is, when are we going to see it?
Have you got any idea, Rachel?
Again, through you, Mr. Chair, no, that's not a matter that my group has had any involvement with. However, I would expect our usual practice is that certainly our elected members through a workshop, and you, Mr. Chair, will see the raw submissions and then an analysis of the emerging themes. I'm only too happy, or I'm sure Pernilla will follow that up directly with Barbara and Blaise, who I think have been directly involved in analysing that feedback.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
We have received two mentions that please give us more time. And we've received that, but we haven't received when. So now that we're into end of February now, we're just wondering when we will, that's all. And so if you can find that out, no, that'd be really great.
Yeah, I'll follow that up for you.
Plan review, moving on. Wilson Park concept plan review. We know, I understand where that's at. We had Peter Watson and his helper here explaining it all, and very good support from Marilyn re pre-isolation support. And attachment 1, the Waihī Beach community approved $200 for Waihī Beach contingency account for costs relating printing of 600 self-isolation flyers, that you've got a copy of in the agenda. Who would like to move that? Move James, seconded Anne. Any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Historic trail information. It's a long thing. The budget is there. There's some added bills to be paid in there. Pernilla?
Where are you, sorry?
Historic trail information project. There's some extra bills that have been processed.
I don't have any. The only one that I got was for the printing.
The maps.
Maps, printing.
You've got there.
Printing of the self-isolation flyers, which you just.
No, we've moved off the self-isolation.
Yeah, that's the only payment that I.
Well, I was asked a little while ago to approve some extra things for the historic trails.
No, that's, sorry, Ross, that's already committed funds that the board's put aside. So it has been approved already. It's just a matter of you as chair confirming those payments when the invoices come in, that the work's been done. So that's already been paid.
There's a very good, I'll skip over emergency response because that's all tied up with that. I'm not saying that's a separate item, but that's, yeah, you want to say something about that?
No, so just probably nothing to talk
Yeah,
about.
nothing to talk about. Information Centre and events and promotions, very, very good report. The same report that they have actually forwarded to council for their things. And you want to add to Wilson Road ground plants other than that?
No, we dealt with that.
Yeah, dealt with that.
Yep.
Entranceway report.
Yeah, essentially we're still running on volunteer help from Rose Fox, who's an architect locally and is preparing stuff, and as and when she gets time. And yeah, when we've got that ready, then we can put it out there again and just see what people think.
So hopefully at Easter.
Hopefully.
Good. Coast care, creek cleaning. We need to have, Rachel, we need to have discussion with whoever about creek cleaning and the frequency of. Don't we, Don?
Yeah, yes, we do. It's, well, we have asked and we haven't had, EJ was coming back with an opportunity to meet, but I haven't heard.
No.
Okay, that's a further discussion that we've got to have. And it's an ongoing discussion. Yes, and
To be fair, I don't think he was expected to come back now, but we would need to keep it alive, and that we are still waiting, yes, for EJ to report back from his discussion at our workshop dated January, wasn't it?
yes, January 20th or thereabouts.
Yeah. He told us that it would take somewhat while, because we asked him many historical questions about 2-3 Mile Creek and Broadlands block and all sorts of things. And to be fair, he wasn't really familiar with a lot of those. And
Yeah.
so he did tell us it would take a while to get that. But just to keep it in the dialogue or in the minutes so we don't lose sight of that with the staff who obviously pick up what's coming through our community board.
Yeah, if I could make a comment on, I am aware that there's been quite a number of complaints through the council about stagnant water, Three Mile Creek and so on. And I think it is an urgent matter that we have a discussion, high-level discussion, call it what you like, about stormwater generally, because there's further development up the back of 3 Mile Creek and the issues about Broadlands block, discussion, comments here tonight about the new development, comments about and development further north with the residential home, and the community are generally really concerned about stormwater in Waihī Beach and how it can cope and if it will ever cope. So I think it's really important that we have this very soon.
Mr. Chair, may I respond?
Yes, you can.
Maybe to inquire whether or not you, I understand you had a workshop today. Whether on the plan, okay. So I was just wondering whether or not there was a discussion around stormwater. We did go through, and Ross, you'll remember, we went through a massive exercise back in 2013 called Not Just a Storm in a Teacup. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes, I can't forget it. It's imprinted on my back.
So that was about 18 months worth of very close engagement with community via a reference group that we'd formed, and the opportunity to participate in focused workshops. That was expressly about stormwater and stormwater levels of service. So the levels of service that are in our long-term plan at the moment emerged from that process, and they were, and actually that's the gestation of the 2 Mile Creek intervention mitigation works, was as a result of that process and flooding events that particularly Waihī Beach had experienced. That same process wasn't replicated for the Bowentown end of the beach, but that process has subsequently involved particularly the community of Pure Shores. So we have been through a very prolonged process with Waihī Beach, albeit a few years ago now, and updated hazard modelling, rainfall intensity modelling since then. So it's certainly not my area of expertise, but if that is, and perhaps that's a conversation that needs to be bundled into, Mr. Chair, that the concerns being expressed around the intensification of development, especially in commercial zones, which actually is provided for under our district plan, and how we approach the analysis of stormwater management for those discrete developments, so that it doesn't create any downstream implications, particularly in any of the creeks. So that is something that's considered routinely by council's utilities engineers and land development engineers for every single resource consent that is presented to us. But if you feel that there'd be merit in a more focused workshop around that, then I'm sure I could liaise with Gary Ellis, that is, to arrange a combination of his staff and my staff for that purpose.
James, you want to respond?
Yeah, I just think part of the problem here is there's a lot of misinformation and supposition floating around the community and others. brought up by people who are not experts, and they have genuine questions to ask, but they're not feeling that they understand. They don't understand council's approach, perhaps, and so there might be merit in at least us as a community board getting a good understanding of what council's approach is and what stormwater mitigation and allowances have been made for, and then we can have confidence that stormwater issues are or have been addressed, rather than people guessing that one development or another will cause problems when we simply don't know that. Other people simply don't know that, and there's been a bit of mischief making.
Well,
Hang on.
Anne and then Don.
If you remember, Rachel, I asked when you were sitting behind me at one of the council meetings just before Christmas, that this is exactly what I wanted. I wanted us to get together and talk about the stormwater issues for Waihī Beach. And you've added another point, which I am very grateful to, that both regulatory and the whoever looks after the water, whatever they're called, they are both responsible for these issues that these people are very concerned about. And I would have to say that I am one of them too. We're on a sandbar here. And if you can organise that with Gary and for us, so we are informed, we know what our plan is now. And, 2013, a lot of water's gone under the sea, the part of the pun, and things have happened. So that is exactly what we need. And that would be really helpful. Thank you.
And before.
I should just be clear, Mr. Chair, that so the first point to make is that regulatory and utilities and transportation, we all work together. So we're not acting in isolation. When resource consents come in for discrete developments, we work well together. And if we don't have the internal expertise, then we get it. So that's the first point to make. And the second, I think, is if for that kind of workshop approach to be useful, I'm not proposing that it's a review of our levels of service or a review of our approach to stormwater. Yeah. I think it's a more general discussion with the community board rather than the public at large, because I will end up having to manage every armchair expert that we have in our district, and there are many. But I think that it would be useful if we could do that just with the community board.
Yes,
thank you, Rachel. Now, Don has a comment and then James.
Because I think disregarding any future development, at present, there are large creeks which are stagnant around Waihī Beach, and they have been that for years, quite frankly. And Kelvin Hill, before he left, said that it was time for a discussion. And I think there is a now as well as a future that we need to address.
James, last say.
Yeah, I was just going to agree with Rachel's approach there, and I think having seen some of the responses that council has provided to Mr. Hay and others around stormwater issues, and the work that goes in behind the scenes on mitigating and modelling, and it's just not out there in the community that work has been done. And there's a perception, which I think is completely wrong, but a perception that council just hasn't done its homework.
That's future.
Whereas I've seen some of those reports, detailed professional reports, and there's been a huge amount of work on it. But as you say, armchair experts sometimes come up with their own conclusions. And I think we as a community board need to understand what council has done and the work it does to enable development.
Right, we will move on. But Rachel, we're booked in for a stormwater update for the community board, so we understand. Clarification.
Yes, I've heard, Mr. Chair. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We go on to Three Waters. Well, you've got that information that came to the community board. Broadlands block, we've heard from Ruth Parsons. Good work there. Ruth's really got her mojo on and it's working at a pace. So that's about it, other than you've got the isolation thing. We had a letter from Derek Sage, which Rachel will be familiar with, being on the community board. He's a medical expert and he's making some suggestions. We have to have a discussion with him before we go further. And that's the end of my report. So I would like to move.
I'll second it.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Right.
Against, carried. Vanilla, what do we go on to next? Councillors report.
So I'd like to move that my
Yeah.
report.
Sorry, councillors report, page 57. Sorry, Anne.
And that's taken as read.
I'll second that.
Any questions?
Yes, and you have local government review.
Yep.
Could you provide us with any information about the content of the first review part that was
No.
tabled on
Yeah.
the 30th of September?
No, I can't.
Maybe I'll come in there. So LGNZ have been hosting a series of Zoom calls, discussions covering a number of topics, and there's been some dialogue there. And so try and find it. Aspects of local government reform that we might want to consider. There are future workshops planned, and there's some people coming to council soon, isn't there, Rachel, I think?
Yeah. So there's nothing to report. They've just given their high level briefing and blah, 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 kino koto and all that stuff. They haven't really got down to anything. So that's why I said there's nothing to report.
Right, any other comments on the councillor's report or questions? As you've moved, I'll second. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Anzac Day commemorations. That right, Vanilla?
Yep, page 61.
Yep.
Who's going to attend?
Mr. Chairman. Chairman.
I thought you were volunteering.
I nominate you, Mr. Chairman. I might keep you company. Anne's doing Caddy this year. So
Well, I
might
hope
keep
you
you
do,
Yeah.
James. I hope you do.
Yeah, it'd be nice. to
Be a
go.
pleasure.
Yeah. Okay,
So who was that? Sorry, you've got.
It's
Ross.
right, it's Chairman, but I'll be there too. Probably.
Okay,
Oh,
perfect.
okay,
And then you're happy to provide a ref?
yes,
Perfect.
and it gets delivered to the RSA
Correct.
as long as they're open for Anzac Day.
Yeah. We'll make sure you get it.
Because I don't want to be running around at the last moment trying to find it. It has to be delivered to the RSA in their office and I just pick it up if it may be me.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Do we need to move that?
The move recommendations that James and Ross represent the Waihī Beach Community Board and any other community board member is to be there as well. And we're approving the $200 on page 61.
That's been seconded.
And that's been seconded.
Is it?
Yep.
Seconded by Bob. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against. Carried. Moving on.
Page 64, infrastructure report.
Infrastructure report. This is where you come to the fore, Ashley.
Yep, by and large, I'm happy to take it as read. Does anybody have any particular issues they'd like to get information on?
If I may go, we want clarification of which traffic refuge or pedestrian refuge
Pedestrian refuge.
place is going to be funded by the community board, and there seems to be another one that's crept in across Browns Drive.
There were two. There was one that was by Browns Drive. That's correct. That was the one for the purpose of aiding the school pedestrian movement. And then there was another one further along by the pensioner units.
Now, the one you say near Browns Drive, is that across Beach Road or across Browns Drive itself?
Beach Road.
Right, thank you. Now, there seems to be a perception that there is one going over Browns Drive.
No.
No, there's not one that's being designed or funded by this council anyway.
There's something.
There just seems to be, there is going to be
I
one.
think-
So we thought it might have been something to do with the 90 odd units being built up in Browns Drive.
No.
No, unless that's something that the developer is putting in, but I'm not aware of that. I'll probably just refer to it as the Browns Drive.
I think that's what
crossing,
happened.
yeah, because they're both on Beach Road, so it was
Right, okay.
yeah, just a way of defining one from the other. Apologies if that was my that the comments have been misleading.
Well, we just want to understand, we're not complaining.
The Browns Road one does have some complications. So I'm getting a bit frustrated trying to get some design information out of Westlink actually. It looks like there was a little bit more road widening than I'd first anticipated. However, I think the one up by the pensioner units, that should have been in months ago, and I'm just really getting frustrated with Westlink.
And you've got something to say?
Right. Well, I am just that last comment. I'm pleased that you've said that, because the way I read what is in here is actually contradictory to what you've said for that last one by the pensioner units. And it says the design and on page 67. Design and costs for the 55 Beach Road pensioner units refuge are yet to be reviewed and accepted by council. The board will be advised when the information comes to hand. So what does it mean by accepted by council?
Yeah, I haven't seen any final design costs, essentially. If they blow out, I would just advise this board that there's been some variation to the original estimate.
Oh, okay.
It's acceptance of the cost, not acceptance of
I see. Okay, so right. So and on that same page it says refuge installation on Beach Road near Browns Road. So that's where that confusion's probably coming.
Yeah, apologies. I can review that.
No, it's just it's clear when you read it properly.
It's clear in my mind.
Yeah. Where do you think James and I had a look today? Have you got a place in the dip on Beach Road for the school one? Have you defined an area yet?
Yep, there is a defined area. Probably a little bit hard to explain without sharing my screen and getting the actual design information that I have. I'm happy to forward it or look at it in the forthcoming workshop that we've got planned in early March. I can bring the information then.
That'd be great, thank you.
Don?
Just actually a couple of things on the cycle path signs. We're still waiting on a few, I think, aren't we?
Yes, I was up at the Trig today and Zach just looking at good locations. And I have the one spare sign because we were at one arrow short, weren't we? So I've got those signs on my desk and I can drop those off at Beach Contractors hopefully this week.
It's been done well, and also the maps are all up and running, which is
yes, they look good too.
Yeah, thank you. Page 66 and events and promotions. Cindy was very good. The other comment, just where are we at, please, with cost estimates for Seaforth Road and or Old Glory? We really want to make a push along on those.
Yeah, that Seaforth Road one, that's frustrating as well. I've been asking for that, I don't know, when I walked over with Westlink, maybe in October. And I've just been hounding them. Apologies. Hopefully I'll have some sort of an answer for the workshop.
Which workshop?
I think we've got a workshop in early March.
Yes, we have a workshop, or we'll have a workshop for our April meeting, before our April meeting. So it'll be about the end of March. So
Is that where
you've
we
got a
have,
target there, Ashley.
is that the walk around as well?
Oh, no, no. Sorry,
Earlier.
James had asked me to come along and, I know I'm getting confused probably. I'm happy, yeah, I am, aren't I? Easily done. Yeah, no, look, I'm happy to meet any board member, and we can do preferably together a bit of a walkover of the various sites and stuff that need doing. Got the cycle path in Seaforth Road.
I think we've agreed that the Seaforth from Dillon Street through to the loop is a high priority as a cycleway, and the issue about doing something to the Edinburgh Road Bridge. So we just need to,
Yes,
these comments of yours, which is obviously valid, saying you're frustrated. Well, what can we do to become unfrustrated?
yeah. Look, I mean, well, let's just go through these things one at a time. The Dillon Street shared path, I mean, that's going to have a significant expense, and I think I forwarded. I asked Bridget New Zealand to provide cost estimates, and they've done that. I thought that I'd provided that to the board. Maybe
Yeah,
I haven't.
Yeah, we have got it. I
Yeah.
can't remember what it was, but I know you did do
Well, let's get on with it.
it. But we
Well,
may-
we need to resolve that, don't we? Before
Yeah, we need to
then, so you have to choose.
consider as a bridge and pathway, so, and it'll progress over 2 or 3 years.
For 1 or 2.
For 1 or 2, yes.
Get it rolling.
Get it rolling.
Let's do it.
We currently don't have a resolution to do the Dillon Street 2 Mile Creek shared path or for the Seaforth Road path widening. I'm waiting on a cost estimate for the path widening. When that comes to hand, I'll forward it to the board, and then we'll make that a resolution for the next meeting after that.
Thank you, Anne.
I've got a few things. On page 68, there's 2 things. 2 Mile Creek. We have said this before in a workshop, where the staff are progressing, obtaining land entry and legal agreements. This board has expressed a feeling that we do not want, and they'll correct me if things change, we do not want any people getting access to council getting access to land for exchange for doing something that has been a requirement for their building to go up in the first place. And I'm referring to the service lane and the trucks and people being able to service the back of it. And I don't even know what the number of it is, the strata building. So we've said this to Gary, we've said it to EJ, and we are very adamant that that is not what we see as the way that council should be doing business, by obtaining land entry from ratepayers that are using that ability for council to be able to do the work, by not allowing them to go onto their land unless they get something that they have asked for. Now, we went there today, and whilst if there is a benefit in the community getting some parking from that area behind the land, that's the person that's making these demands, thank you, then maybe there is an opportunity to look at it. But we would not like council to actually change what was done as a building requirement for that building to go up, and now that we want to do something that this suddenly changed. So I'm just putting that out there. So that's one thing. PO Shores. PO Shores, I spend a lot of time down there in the weekend, and there's a lot of people that are really concerned about the model that's going in there for managing the stormwater down there. And I don't know, none of you will probably know anything about it, and maybe we need to take it up further, that the person who's actually kind of seems to be approving this in the community is Peter Roy. Now, I spoke to him in the holidays. He's not sure about whether he doesn't, he said, I'm not an expert, but I'm just taking it on, you know, I guess taking it on what the Tonkin and Taylors have designed. And once again, I'm putting that out there as well. I have concerns about it. And you want to talk about that too?
Just a point here, it's not actually up to Peter Roy to approve or not.
Well, it says that people are talking to him,
Well, they may talk to him.
Chair.
not approving, but
So this sounds exactly like the sort of thing we were talking about with Rachel before, where some people have an idea about managing stormwater. Council's doing a good job in engaging Tonkin and Taylor, and then people are second guessing the experts. So again, that might be a topic, that particular one might be another one to include in the discussion about what's going on and why it's happening.
absolutely.
So that we can quell these.
Yeah.
These.
Well, I didn't have any answers for it, so
Well, you wouldn't expect it. 'Cause
no,
you're not
we,
a
I don't,
hydrologist.
yeah, but I haven't. We haven't been.
Hang on, just one at a time, please.
Yeah.
It's very hard for Pamela to get
Yeah.
or even record
Yeah.
what's the discussion if we all talk at once.
So I'm still going along on my list.
Yeah, have you?
Yes, I said I had a few.
Yes, and thank
And
you.
so I'm going back to onto page 75 now. The Broadlands update, and I'm referring to the budget there. Stephen White came out and spoke to, as we heard tonight, to Ruth.
Yes.
And what I'm concerned about is that before the contractors are engaged, if he could get back to Ruth, who will inform the board, what is the quote for the extra work that he is engaging or talking to the contractors about doing in there? Because now that we're paying for all the bits that we're getting done, we need to know what that amount is that's going to come out of our money. And on that too, we also have money, and I'm assuming that is coming in from another source, and we don't want the finances to get the two amounts of money mixed up, because none of that money should be used. Well, maybe it should, but at this point, none of it should be used for these other bits and pieces, because it's been got for a specific purpose. And I'm sure that the finance people probably know that, but just want to make sure that it's put out there. And the regular updates from on page 82 from Mishmish have shown no further progress on something that we saw pretty well in our first year of this triennium, and it's not any further progress than then. So we would like that to be every update on that on a regular basis, perhaps every board meeting.
Yes.
Every board meeting, to see where we're at, to put a bit of pressure on to actually get it finished.
Scott Parker has sort of tentatively promised us those signs, panels will be up by Easter. I hope he has faith in that.
And the last thing is just another query to what you said, Ashley, about the cost of the two refuge, which you've got in here is 70,000, and you're not sure whether one of them could blow that out. Is that what you were referring to?
I'm actually quite certain one will blow it out. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we need to
again,
do that now?
no, because again, I'm just waiting on the detailed design is getting drawn up, and for whatever reason, it just seems to be perpetually on hold. I don't know. But once I get a firm figure of how much of a variation we're looking at, I'll relay that to the board, and then you can reconsider the resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, James. I
had a question for Rachel, if I may. On page 68, it says a variation to consent has been granted to install rock armouring on 2 Mile Creek. And I believe that's the regional council consent, but I also noticed on Thursday we're appointing an independent commissioner for the same variations. So, so what's the difference between the two consents there? Are you aware of that?
I'm not, it doesn't surprise me that land use consent is required from us, and equally a consent from the regional council to vary the underlying consent. I'm pretty sure that it was issued today. If you bear with me, perhaps we'll have a quick look in my emails and then I can come back to you.
Okay.
Or I might have the wrong end of the stick entirely. But if I do, I will come back to you post the meeting and give you an explanation around what is required under our consent provisions, our district plan provisions.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Don,
Just on curbside, and I support the comment made earlier in the meeting about how well it has gone, and especially with the extra collections of recyclables over the period. On a Monday, for instance, both bottles and paper was collected. I think that a further improvement could be made whereby long weekends, whereby there is a large number of people in Waihī Beach, if that could continue, i.e. Bottles in particular, but also paper, because Waihī Beach is divided up Emerton Road north. It's Bottles one week, and Bowentown, Athenry and part of Waihī Beach, Bottles the other week. So it's not a huge amount more time to collect all the bottles and all the paper. I understand normally it would be okay, but long weekends, there is a huge amount of bottles in particular, which if they're not collected on that particular Monday, they will be staying on the side of the road for some days or weeks or even longer. So I think it would be a good idea to consider, and I hope implement for long weekends, i.e. the Monday of long weekends, bottles and recyclables. I mean, people will say, okay, you can put it in your general rubbish. I agree you can, and people do, but we are looking at recycling things, and I think it would be a positive thing to happen.
but generally the rubbish collection has gone very well, very well, and people are got used to it very quickly.
So are you saying you'd like that to be taken to the waste management team to consider?
Yes, please.
Yes.
So,
If that's what's
so you're moving that,
okay, I'll move that.
and I'll
For long
second that.
weekends.
Second, any discussion on that? You know where Don's coming from?
I wonder if there's quite a bit of extra cost that might be incurred if you did it on the long weekend as well as the main Christmas holiday time, simply because they have it, like for the glass recycling, a specialised truck.
Yes.
And I know they've managed to do it, but sometimes it's 5 o'clock at night down our end before the glass gets picked up or something. There must be extra cost in that, because otherwise they're going to build another truck. You know?
Well, but it's a service for ratepayers, and the ratepayers require that service.
Well, okay, James,
I just want to update that at a workshop a couple of weeks ago, we discussed the possibility that council may provide an additional glass crate if requested to households that receive the curbside service.
all right.
So that might help if there's a bit more of a party atmosphere going on long weekend in Waihī Beach, and there's lots of bottles. Then if you get 2 crates rather than 1, that will help the problem.
Well, it's just that Waihī Beach does have a large holiday population in the long weekends. And if bottles aren't collected in that particular long weekend, whether it be Bowentown section or Waihī Beach section, those bottles, for instance, the long weekend Queen's birthday, the next one is in October. So if people came and had a lot of bottles and it's not their collection that particular Monday, they have to wait for about 5 months for that bottle to be collected.
No, it's every fortnight.
Yeah, but they don't come every fortnight. They're there for long weekends. I mean, we have agreed that Waihī Beach does have an.
Well, that is the point of the
unusual
putback
population.
service.
Sorry?
That is the point of the putback service.
No. Bottles, recyclable bottles, you can put out and leave out. Sure. You've got to organise to get people to take the bottle back in.
Yeah, that's what the putback service, which was.
Well, why do we have the extra collection?
Can we stop the chit chat backwards and forwards and
Okay.
just focus on, Donald's got a point. James, you're saying that there is moves to provide extra bottle capacity.
Initial discussions, yeah.
Yeah, initial discussions, and Bob,
Could I also point out, I know I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, that before we had these bins, we used to take things along to the Athbury Recycling,
Correct.
which is still open.
At the moment.
yeah,
I
which I
understand.
use, or my wife does.
I understand it's going to close.
I think that's premature to say that.
Okay.
Right, okay. Thank you for tolerating our chit chat, but
We've just made that.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do with it?
what are we going to do with it? Are you going to explore options, Don?
Oh, I'd like to move that on long weekends, there is a collection for recyclables of both bottles and paper throughout Waihī Beach on long weekends.
All right, okay.
Can I suggest amending that to
Yeah.
suggest to staff to look into that, because it'll be tied up in contracts and so on, so it may not be easy to
Yeah,
do.
the
That's
costings of
fine,
it,
that's
because
fine.
there's,
Right, now it's been amended by James that the staff look into the possibilities.
Yeah.
Long weekends, a Monday of long weekends, that both bottles and recyclable paper are collected.
Right, the amendment is, as we just said, you second agree with that?
are you saying to look into the costing?
Having a collection every Monday of long weekend.
Should we say feasibility rather than costing?
Yeah, feasibility,
Yeah,
the
that's
feasibility of it, yes.
Right,
Oh,
okay.
yes, I'm having to make that.
You-
That's a
you've got
second
that, Penelope?
amendment.
Feasibility of? Good.
Cool.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Alright.
Against? No. Not me. Yes, no, no one against it. Carried.
I'll
Let's
see
get
you.
on with life. Thank you. Rachel. Rachel.
Yes, yes.
There is a very good high-level engineer that is in charge of Becca's on the PO's group. I've forgotten his name I should know it, but he lives in, he has a batch in PO Shores,
Gary McDonald.
Gary McDonald.
Right.
He would be a valuable contact to explain and have the expertise either within his own head or somebody on Becca's group to assure people of the validity of the stormwater modelling.
We can't do that.
I think you'll find that he will want to stay impartial
All right.
rather than being on both sides.
Engineers don't tend to give professional opinions unless you're paying them.
And they won't criticise each other.
Yeah. All right. I'm just trying a leg of there is expertise there, and you cut through the armchair experts. Okay.
I've got a question.
Yes.
It's been a long day. We had a workshop this morning for 3 hours and now we're back here at the beach again. Can you actually help me with where we are at? I'm just looking on page 79 with the Waihī Beach urban cycleway improvements. Now I know that Don has put through the Dillon Street Bridge for the cycleway. And you know, for the cyclists to go on the other side of the bridge, the pedestrian one side. It's not here, but where is it sitting at the moment?
We haven't resolved it.
No, is it? So you put it forward as your priority.
Yeah.
So it's not come anywhere through to you, Ashley, yet.
No.
Oh.
That he has sent through costing, but I haven't seen.
So where is it in your report? The bridge part.
Oh, it's just part of the general cycle path
So
comment.
it could come in there, and that you've got the urban cycleway connections of Dillon Street and Seaforth Road. Would it, is that if you wrote it, it would come in there?
Yeah. If I'd be happy to add some more detail into the infrastructure report if that's what I understand you're after.
Yes, well, that's what I'd like to see, but I don't know. I'm asking a question. I can't. My brain's not working properly to say. Are we up to that yet?
the board resolved a wee while ago to set aside $100,000 for cycle facilities, and it was all coming out of that general bucket.
100,000,
Yeah, so it should be reported in your. Yeah.
Ashley
you.
emailed us 29th of October last year about the bridge, Dillon Street.
Yeah,
Bridge.
but we need to have it in the report. Thank you,
And James is
Ashley.
just clarifying that you did email us at the end of October, Ashley.
Yeah, and it's 100 to 110k plus 30k for works and utilities and 30% contingency 42k. So yeah.
So have we got that in
It
our
could be
financial?
$150,000.
Have we got that in our financials?
No, we haven't.
It hasn't been resolved,
Oh,
so
okay.
it hasn't made it into the financials.
What I'm saying. So we've got to, can we resolve that now? Or not?
Well, sorry, if I may, because we were still considering other uses of that money, and that included the Seaforth Road shared path widening works,
Yes.
the Albacore path, which I'm kind of still waiting on the ARC checks. That has taken unusually long time too. I think that's just the new norm. And I'm also in conversation with Parks and Facilities on that too. So there's a couple of things that are still up in the air, I guess.
Yeah.
So next workshop we can talk about it.
Yeah.
again.
And perhaps our reserves can throw in some money for the Albacore job.
We might like to price the Albacore job to get
The Albacore.
how essential that is.
No, it's not.
Okay.
So if I may just go back to the Albacore job, I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want to put a spade in the in that reserve area without the ARC checks. That's
Yes,
certain.
agreed.
Yeah.
Totally agreed.
There's an issue with encouraging people to cross over Seaforth Road there with that open road limit there.
Yep. Just on that note, I've also engaged with our contractor safety engineer, and we've looked into that, and we think that it's reasonable to mitigate the effects of the speed and the volume of traffic. We were happy with the sight lines, maybe slightly altering the 50k area. We thought and put in a suitable width crossing median as well. So yeah, I didn't have any particular concerns with the safety of people crossing that section of Seaforth Road.
All right, thank you.
He's going to do some slowing the traffic down stuff.
It's going slow.
Just what I'm unsure actually what
It's going to move it.
the process is. Like, we are suggesting that we want the cycleways finished, or at least developed further, and it's all coming out of our so-called reserves. What do other areas do to get their cycleways completed? Because we're talking about maybe 140,000 for a bridge, and along Seaforth Road it'd probably be another 50 or 100,000, and so on and so forth. We're not getting anywhere, just waiting for costings and then coming back to us. How do we get our cycleways nearly completed? Do you come forward, or could you come forward with some recommendations, and then we agree or disagree? Or
I'm happy to put some recommendations in based on what I believe your priorities to be, if that's what you want me to do.
right,
Yeah, we
Or how
do.
you'd best spend,
Yeah.
how much you'd
And we can
best
say,
for your money.
get on with life.
I still have other, like again, the ARC checks and so on and so forth. I mean, there's no way I'd try and skirt around those.
no.
We need the iwi consultation as well. And again, just waiting on Westlink to provide the cost for that Seaforth Road job. Are you asking if it's appropriate that it's funded by the roading account?
It is funded by the roading account.
I think he's asking, are there other funds like the walking and cycling fund or something that could fund it possibly?
National Cycleway.
Give it.
National Cycleway.
I recall, I can't remember his name. There was a resident, Brian, who suggested that that NZTA or Waka Kotahi would fund like 90% of cycle trails, but that no, I just could never work out where he got that information from.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's on their website that they support things.
Yeah, they do, but
No, they're not going to fund 90% of a cycle trail.
you're talking about ones that will take you from Waihī Beach, Athenry, Tennis Point, all the way into Katikati. Though that's where you get the money from, not these little side streets around. I don't think that that's what it's intended for. I might be wrong, but it's a cycleway of national significance or use.
I'm seeing this infrastructure
Come
as
forward,
capital improvements.
your thoughts on priorities and mark the costings with them, and then we can do that and have a discussion at a workshop and get on with it. It's just that Seaforth Road is becoming quite dangerous for some cyclists. And the Edinburgh Street Bridge is already dangerous.
That's why.
Yeah. So next workshop, Ashley,
She got a hand up.
Rachel's got a hand up.
here's Rachel.
That's a complete accident. I don't know how.
You're doing really well.
If there are no more questions on the infrastructure, I just need a mover and a seconder.
Yes.
He's got a
Bring it
question.
one.
Yeah, Bob wants one small point.
There's just a small point here, actually page 66. The last bit on the village garden section, you've got there at the bottom, spring 2022. It's actually autumn 2022. The planting to commence.
We
Right,
want the
okay,
plants
apologies,
in
yeah.
May, Ashley, we want the plants in May, June, so that they survive at Christmas time.
Yes, no, I'm happy to support that. Yep, that's right. But I understood from this board wanted to manage that themselves through with getting help on board. So I'm happy to take direction from this board. Whatever assistance I can lend, I've offered that a few times.
And thank you too. That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. We all like to move the infrastructure report. Anne, seconded. James, all in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Next thing. Finola,
Financial.
financials.
Page 83, Ross.
Yes, I'm looking at it.
I just have a question on page 84. The up to 50,000 for Broadlands Block Reserve concept plan appears to be in twice. It's before the closing balance at December 2021, and then again on the next group, committed reserve expenditure yet to be spent. Seems to be in there twice, $15,000.
So I believe they're two separate. So one's the reserve payment analysis. It's telling you what you've paid so far. The next one's committed, so it's yet to be spent. So it's telling you you've got a remaining of 15,000. That's how I read it.
Just this amount includes 5,000 for an engineering report, as mentioned in both places.
Yeah, because it's the same money.
Same
It's
money.
the same solution.
So we've got $115,000 in our account, supposedly, and by the time we've paid for things that we're including in, we've ended up with 91.
But that 15's in twice, it's the same thing.
What Broadlands Block? Oh, no. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, it's exactly the same resolution. And the wording, the preamble's exactly the same.
Correct.
Why is it there twice?
Don't know.
Because the other items aren't there again.
So you've paid some of the 50,000. So it's taken the money that you've already spent out of the first table and giving you your total. The second table is giving you the remainder of 15 that you're committed. So that's adding to the rest, adding with the ones on page 85, you're committed, all those together, and what your remainder is after that.
A point to say that is that first part is hard to understand because you've got 50,000 there with a balance of only 15, but only 5,000 and 15,000 commented. You've got to go down to the next one to know that there was already 35 paid for the pathways.
It wasn't 35 paid for pathways, it was only 20.
Ruth's asking for the detail of that. Yeah, 20, you're right.
It was only 20. So that, hang on, that doesn't make sense.
Well, could somebody?
So this doesn't make sense. It should be 50,000.
Yeah.
20 was taken out
For pathways.
for pathways. The balance was 30, and now 15's taken out. That's the way it should read. It's wrong.
Can I ask that
It doesn't
the
balance
acceptance of the financial report will be on the basis that there is an explanation of the finances going in and out of the Broadlands block account?
And to, as requested, are you going to do what Ruth asked for?
Ruth.
As
Detail.
Ruth Parsons in Public Forum has requested as the convener of this project to have a detailed account of the financials that are taken out from the Broadlands block.
She's been asked for 53.
And she's been asking for it for 3 years.
Second,
I'll second it.
Bob,
Thank you.
any further discussion? No, there's no further discussion, therefore I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Right,
Schedules.
I'll move that one.
I'll second it.
all in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
I'm not certain when we have our next meeting, sometime beyond the calendar by the look of things.
19th of April.
19th of April,
We are getting ashes coming before the.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll have a workshop.
Workshop.
We'll have a public workshop, Ashley.
To be
Yep,
advised.
I'll be there, front row centre.
Oh, no, sorry.
Oh, hang on.
Yeah, sorry.
Don't panic.
Put the-
Don't panic.
put the brakes on, right?
Yes, definitely.
It's the highlight of my social
Middle
calendar.
of March, we'll have, middle of March, we'll have a workshop with you and others. And we'll be having a stormwater,
Yeah.
community board explanations, clarifications on stormwater, won't we, Rachel?
Yes, we will, Mr. Chair, but look, I just want to caveat that I have just committed a whole lot of very senior resources who are struggling at the moment working under COVID conditions. So I will need to consult with some of my colleagues about when they feel that they can make it. That might not align with your next workshop date.
But we
So-
will have a workshop or workshop dates to accommodate them,
Yeah.
even if they are online.
Sorry, can you say that again, Mr. Chair? What did you say?
We
You
will
said you.
try to adapt our workshop or workshops to accommodate.
Okay. Yes, it might be that you keep your scheduled workshop date, but then just have a bespoke date just for stormwater.
Yeah.
Correct.
And bearing in mind, Rachel, that we did say before, and we had sent to EJ, that we understood that there was a lot that we asked, and there's a lot of issues out here, as you're well aware, that we totally understand that it's going to take some time to coordinate that. And I personally would rather it take a longer time to get the best out of what we're asking for. You know, take the time that's required to get all the right
I mean,
pieces.
yeah, and I can give you a signal that the research that EJ has been tasked with in terms of the history of 2 Mile and 3 Mile Creek is enormous.
Yes.
Enormous. And you know, Ross, that was last done, that research was last done in the guise of framing up options as an alternative to the rock wall, so the rock revetment.
Yes.
So we're talking about probably 50 to 70 years worth of history. So I wouldn't be surprised if EJ hasn't even got to that yet,
Yeah.
because it is a Pandora's box.
He
And
needs
he will
help
need days to do
from
that.
Kelvin. He needs help from Kelvin.
I think maybe it's worth saying that I don't believe what we're asking for is any new work. maybe a bit of collation, but it's really things that the knowledge council already has, or works they, you know, that they, the research has already been done. And I don't think we're asking for anything new.
Can't have stagnant water.
God,
Different one, but yeah.
Yeah.
therefore, I move that we close this meeting.
Mhm.
All in favour, please say aye.
And thank you for attending this evening, Rachel.